A mysterious, small-town legend of a murderer scares the wits out of a group of women gone to spend a night on the town. The setting, tone, and dialogue Bradbury writes in this story reminds me of that great era of 40s to 50s TV, kind of like Abbott and Costello, though not horribly similar, just reminds me of that tonally, like I said, dialogue, the way that characters interact reminds me of that era of TV, something that I have a deep nostalgia for because of the aforementioned Abbott and Costello. The main thing I got reading this story was that it could have been a brilliant prologue to a suspense or thriller novel. As is, I still really liked it though, and I give The Whole Town Sleeping a 5 out of 5. So not only did I have my first 5 out of 5 back with To Build a Fire 2 weeks ago, but I have a second one in a row. Let's start off with something we all know a little bit about: urban legends. We all know about the urban legends that form in the wake of mysterious disappearances and murders. These are things that crop up and that permeate the minds of a town or even a city, and justifiably so. We are worried about these kinds of things happening to us, so we think about them a lot when we hear about them for the first time. We all know that those legends are valid fears that people live with. In this particular town, the Lonely One is the name of this legend. It's a figure, a man, that stalks the dead of night and disappears other people, usually women. And yes, I said disappears as a verb, just go with me here. These women are usually missing for a few days before being found under not so ordinary circumstances, no longer living. One such evening, Francine and Lavinia are heading for a night on the town. On their way to a theater, they come across a dead Elizabeth, a woman recently gone missing. The cops deal with the body and the girls continue on their way, though Francine is very nervous, and justifiably so. They make the theater, and the program is rushed, cutting the intermission to allow for the earliest possible time for the audience to go home, because it will be dark, and in the wake of Elizabeth's body being found, people are worried about the Lonely One. Following the program, the women debate what they're going to do and walk home together. Lavinia and Francine finally, eventually, near the end of the evening, come to Francine's home, and Francine insists on Lavinia staying over for the night just in case the Lonely One is still about somewhere. Lavinia justifies her own decision to not stay with Francine by the fact that all of the previous murders have been spaced out by quite a substantial time, a period of a few weeks or a month or so, and so Lavinia refuses and continues home. She comes across Officer Kennedy, who scares her a bit but promises to be a shout away, only a shout away, if Lavinia is in danger. All she has to do is scream, and Officer Kennedy will come running. Lavinia makes further towards home. She eventually starts to hear steps behind her. She does not look behind and instead runs home in fear. She does not ever look behind her, therefore does not know who is chasing her, if anybody is. But finally, she reaches her home, seemingly safe and relieved to be so. But the story ends with one final line of her hearing a man clear his throat behind her. We, as the readers, are left uncertain whether the cleared throat is in Lavinia's imagination, whether the footsteps she hears behind her on her lonesome way home are her imagination. We're left uncertain that even if it isn't her imagination, that it isn't just Officer Kennedy, who is secretly the Lonely One, or following behind her, kind of creepily and mysteriously for some other unknown reason. My personal reading of this story, The Whole Town Sleeping, sees the Lonely One clearing his throat at the very end of the story in Lavinia's home as probably real, but I don't think the footsteps following Lavinia are real. I think that aspect is just the woman's fear getting the best of her. After all, she never looks behind her to confirm whether or not there is someone chasing her, and I think anybody knows that, well, if you hear something, you're going to look, and I don't really believe that she didn't look. Personally, maybe that's just me getting hung up on a detail, but that's my reading of the story. I believe that Officer Kennedy is a red herring. but who knows what all of this final act of the story is real and what all is not. As I say, the suspense and supposed chase make for a thrilling conclusion to this exposition. A full thriller or suspense novel based on this idea of the lonely one, and in this town, with this story being the perfect prologue to it, would have been a fantastic time. Of course, that's not what we got here, but I can't imagine in my head what a great story to continue this would be, or what it could be like if Bradbury had decided to take that idea and run with it, so to speak. If I were anywhere near the writer that Bradbury was, I think I'd even personally almost be inclined to write that novel. Garbage fan fiction that it would be, but it would certainly be an interesting time. I think The Whole Town Sleeping is a very fun story, and I hope that if you read it to watch this video, that you enjoyed it too. Coming up next fortnight on the 16th of the month, we'll be covering another story, returning back to a fixture of the series so far, Edgar Allan Poe, with the story Loss of Breath. This one I don't actually know anything about, but the story title sounded cool, and I'm hoping it is enjoyable, and I hope to see you there on that episode.